Very good morning, dear friends. Wherever you are, I greet you and I welcome you to this webinar. And this is going to be of around 60 minutes duration, where we are going to go very deep, very intense into the four beliefs that I personally believe are very, very important for creating breakthrough success. So I just want you to, I would say, be involved in this program because the value that you can get out of this webinar is directly proportional to your level of involvement and participation. So I would very much encourage you to be involved, be interactive, and we'll take it as deep as possible. So once again, I welcome you. Nice having you here. And let me share my screen here. So am I audible? Am I visible? Just give me a thumbs up or.
Yes, sir, you're audible and visible.
All right. Thank you very much. Right. Nice. Okay. So again, once again, a formal welcome to this webinar. This webinar is based on applied NLP principles and practices. Please keep your audio muted. I thank you for your presence and time. So whenever you want to ask me a question, you can always unmute and ask me the question. I thank you for your presence and time. It could show that you are interested in your own growth and development. That's pretty obvious, right? And this webinar can really help you in this objective because I firmly believe the content that comes out of this webinar could be very, very useful for our personal growth and development. So agenda, a small introduction about me for those of you who do not know me. And then we'll go into the structure of a belief, what is meant by belief. And then we'll talk about the four beliefs for creating breakthrough success. And we'll also talk about how to apply the learnings, right? That again is pretty important. So we'll spend some time to understand how we can apply these learnings. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end, maybe for 2 to 3 minutes. I'll talk about a further learning opportunity with me for those of you who are interested. So that's the agenda here. I hope you're okay with that. So quickly, let me introduce myself. I'm basically a mechanical engineer, turned trainer and coach. I was working in a government organization. I was happy being an engineer. And I was acknowledged for being an effective engineer. But however, there was this constant pull within me for becoming a trainer and coach. And then some 12 years before I quit my job, and then I started my own training organization. And from then on, the growth has been really fabulous. We have grown into a team of around 3 trainers. We are doing lots of training programs in India. We have around some 20 to 25 major clientele for whom we continuously work. So I believe that one evidence is us being called again and again. That shows our effectiveness and the value that we are creating. In that sense, I feel very fortunate to be in this field, working with very many, I would say, executives and business owners, and help them help themselves. So more than 15 years of corporate training experience. I have done more than 1,200 days of corporate training programs. Pan India, we have done lots of training programs. And gradually, I feel that the evolution of a trainer is into coaching because that's where I would say the biggest change work takes place. So that's a natural evolution, right? Once you start as a freelance trainer, and then you start your own organization so that you can build your own brand, and then you gradually evolve into the concept of group coaching and one-to-one coaching, because that's more informal and it caters to the needs of the participants. So you find huge value in that. So that's how I find the evolution of a trainer. So I have done more than 1,300 hours of coaching. I have coached individuals, executives, business owners, and corporate leaders in various walks of life. Learn, apply, test, and teach from experience has been my philosophy. I'm very fascinated with NLP models. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I'll talk about it as we go down the line. There are very many videos and free resources in my website. You can always choose to watch them if you're interested in understanding what is NLP. So I'm very fascinated with NLP models and frameworks, and I keep learning and teaching at more and more deeper levels. An author of 4 books. I'm interested in haiku writing as an experiment in self-awareness. So my mission, I help individuals, executives, entrepreneurs who feel stuck. I help them to create breakthroughs in their life, career, business by challenging their existing thinking processes and limiting belief systems. So I personally believe life, the growth in life is not linear, right? For example, it starts, there is a plateau, and then something happens in our life. A very powerful learning moment happens, and then there is a breakthrough. Our life goes to the next level, and then there is a plateau, and then again another breakthrough. So this is how I personally believe the breakthroughs or the growth phase in our life happens. And for that to happen, there has to be certain moments in which our existing thinking processes and limiting belief systems have to be challenged. Because what has helped us to come up to this level may no more help us to go to the next level. So every periodically, right, we need to, I would say, re-inquire into our thinking processes and limiting belief systems. And that's what I help in my with my clients to do. Also help them to access their own inner resources. This is again something very, very powerful phrase. NLP believes people already have all the resources they need. So I help them access their own inner resources, create their vision, because this is again a very important element of NLP, where the vision helps you lead a very purposeful life, which could be more meaningful and exciting. And I help them co-create strategies for achieving that vision and bring in their own commitment. Again, right? NLP stands for taking massive action. Start where you are, use what you have, and grow step by step. So that commitment is essential. Otherwise, our goal just remain a dream. I help people start taking action. As a coaching partner, I help them to gently but firmly move out of their comfort zones and explore their full potential. So this is my mission, my creed. I believe, right? Awareness is the foundation basis of transformation. Without awareness, it's very difficult to change. Right? Otherwise, it could be very traumatic. So based on awareness is pretty critical. Awareness is all about making our unconscious patterns conscious and see that what is the impact of those patterns, right? Patterns normally, we talk about 3 types of patterns: patterns in thinking, patterns in language, and patterns in behavior. So becoming aware of these patterns, right? Most of the times we are in a very reactive mode. We will not be aware of what we are doing. So we have consistent patterns which keep on repeating again and again over different contexts, even without our awareness. So unless we become aware of that particular pattern, we have the ability, we call it as a meta state, think about our own thinking, we can feel our own feelings, we can become aware of what is going inside. So that awareness is pretty critical. And that is something very, very important for a transformation, a positive transformation to take place. Then the second concept is freedom, right? Our ability to have more choices. NLP defines freedom as our ability to have more choices, right? A simple metaphor is, should your life, should it be a set meal or a buffet meal, right? What is a set meal? Set meal is a meal where someone decides a menu and cooks and then serves in a particular order, whereas a buffet menu is we do have much choices available where we can right have our own I would say the structure of consuming nice food. So the freedom again is important, our ability to have more personal choices in life. So that again, right, anything that limits your freedom, right, you need to be very cautious. That's what we talk about in NLP. Human life is, I would say, very special, right? We are blessed with a fantastic brain, which I consider is one of the biggest, I would say, one of the wonderful creations in the entire universe that has been programmed for learning to take place on a daily basis, whether you believe that or not. So we continuously keep on learning, and lots of, I would say, particularly in the frontal area of the brain makes us more thinking in nature, more contemplating in nature. And so there is a purpose for that. That's what I believe. So awareness, freedom, and purpose, and particularly the purpose making our lives much more rich, much more meaningful, and much more fulfilling. So these are my creed. I strive to follow this in my own life. I also try to work on these areas with my clients. So let's go into the content today. So what is a belief? So anyone who likes to share their own definition, it may not be a text definition. And again, right, nothing is right, nothing is wrong, everything is a perspective. So would anyone just you can unmute and share your own understanding about a belief? Yes, please.
Sir, it's something like a feeling of certainty. It's very subjective, and the person might believe it is to be true. Something they could be a factual or some values or attitudes, but they believe it is true. It's purely subjective.
Okay, that's great. A sense of certainty. That's great. That's nice. Any other perspectives? What do you consider is a belief? Or you can type in the chat box also. Feel free.
Again, what I think is right.
What I think is
right for me.
That's fantastic, right? That's a very nice definition. Thank you for that. Any other perspectives? See, I always believe in the group wisdom, right? And personally, right, when we understand or when we have inputs from other people's, the way they think, their concepts, that could create beautiful insights for us. So I would encourage you to share your perspectives. Again, nothing is wrong, nothing is right. There is no judgment here. So anyway, feel free. What do you think is a belief? What I trust, what I believe, right? What I think. Thank you, Mr. Manoj. What I think, what I believe, what I trust, right? That's great, right? So thank you for sharing. We'll just move forward. In NLP, we call a belief generalization. I'll give you an example of a generalization later. Generalization is taking one experience from the past and projecting it into the future. Let me repeat it, taking one experience from the past and projecting it into the future. For example, a person is not afraid of dogs. Simple example. One day he is bitten by a dog. Then it could be a traumatic experience. And then what happens is whenever he sees a dog in the future, this particular experience of having been bitten by a dog is projected, and the person feels anxious or afraid of seeing any dog. So it is said that experiences may be sufficient to form a belief system, particularly in any minds. 3 experiences, 3 negative feedbacks could install a particular limiting belief system in our minds, particularly susceptible. It's particularly young minds are very, very susceptible. So that's why we need to pay extra attention and care when we give a feedback, particularly to young minds. So 3 experiences may be sufficient. If 3 feedbacks, right? You cannot communicate well, you are not communicating well, you cannot communicate well, could come again, particularly in a very emotional state. We call it a significant emotional event. So in that case, the belief gets rooted very, very deeply. And very strong generalizations. Phobias are nothing but very, very strong generalization. For example, if a person is getting caught in a lift, and one time that could be so traumatic that it could develop into something which we call as a claustrophobia, or fear of confined spaces. So how to deal with beliefs? So we need to understand the LIE, right? There is a lie in the belief. We need to understand that the beliefs are based on past experiences and need not be true. This I again consider something as important. We need to understand the beliefs are cast based on our past experiences. And our past experiences are not wholesome. They are not inclusive of us. They don't define who we are. So they are just limited experiences based on which we have constructed a belief system. And one thing we need to become aware is they need not be true. Right? It is a lie that we could be telling ourselves. They need not be true. And there are no right wrong beliefs. This is again, I would say, one of my very important learnings, which I got from NLP. There are no right learnings, there are no there are no right beliefs or wrong beliefs. There are only useful beliefs and not useful beliefs. So instead of classifying things as right or wrong, good or bad, it would be very useful for us to classify things as useful or not useful. Of course, we live in a society, we live in a family setup. So it is important for us to have concepts like right or wrong. But whenever it comes to personal development and growth, and particularly in the development of reaching our goals, it is always useful to classify things as useful or not useful instead of them as right or wrong. Now I want to ask you a question. What does this useful or not useful mean? With respect to what? How do I classify my belief as useful or not useful? Useful for what? Not useful for what? Anyone? What do you think?
The belief that help us to progress, it's useful.
Progress.
Because if it hampers us or stumbles us or holds us, then they are very limiting in nature, so they are not useful.
Okay, exactly. So the concept of usefulness comes or not in terms of our long-term goals. So is this useful? Is this belief which I right now have, is it going to be useful in helping me achieve my long-term goals? That's an important question we need to ask ourselves when we classify beliefs as useful or not useful. So the belief, basically the point which I'm trying to emphasize here is the belief I am a good communicator and I am not a good communicator or not really true. Remember, there is no right or wrong. It's only the question of being useful or not useful. So even a belief, if I have a belief that I am a good communicator, that need not always be true. It could be untrue in certain other contexts. And not a good communicator is not really true. So depending on the context, right, that varies. So I am a good communicator, I'm not a good communicator, both need not really be true. The more we understand this, we become empowered to work with our belief system. The more a person believes them, the more they appear true for him or her. So I would want you to just think of one belief that helps you now. Can you think of one belief that is helping you now and share it with the group? So just consider your life, what is happening in your life. I'm sure, right? There are benefits. We are successful. So can you identify one belief that is helping you now? For example, one of my beliefs is people are willing to learn. They don't work for bread alone. They don't work for food alone. So human beings have an innate thirst for learning and development. That is my belief. And I'm finding it very, very validated, right? So I see it all around. People are not just satisfied with food alone. They have an innate, I would say, an evolutionary necessity to keep learning and growing. So that is why that is one belief, and that belief helps me to connect with people and enter into a relationship with them as a mentor or a coach. So this belief is tremendously helping me in whatever I do on the educational sphere. So something similar to that. Anyone share your belief, one belief that is really working for you? Go ahead.
I believe, Ramnath here, I believe that success is all about the choices that I make in my life.
Fantastic. It is about choices. Right. Okay. So how specifically does this help you, right? It's maybe, right, you become very, I would say, keen, observing when you make the choices, and that helps you to become more successful. Am I right, sir, when I say that?
Yes. Yeah. No, it helps me to take those actions which leads to that success.
Okay. That's great. So anyone else? Can you identify and share one belief that really helps you? So I'm pretty here, right? Very good, right? I feel this is very, very useful belief. The success depends on the choices. So whenever we are meeting with a road that we have to take, then when we have this belief, then we become, I would say, more proactive, consider the different choices and choose what is most effective one. It helps us become more proactive in a nutshell, right? That I really like. So anyone else? Can you share one?
Definitely, yes, sir.
Yes, please.
My belief is that education can only change a person's life. This is my belief. And that drives me very specifically to become a perpetual learner. And I also extend to teaching to our students and other communities. So this impacts me a lot.
Okay, right. So education leads to a positive transformation. That's great. That's phenomenal. So that makes you a learner. It also makes you an effective teacher. I understand that. That's great. Any other perspectives or any other beliefs? So identify one belief that really is helping you. Anyone else? Okay, so Mr. Punyakodi, thank you for that. Right, waking up early is good, right? Yes, right. That gives us more time. That puts us in a very, I would say, very positive mood when we get up early. Yeah, I understand that. Early waking. Early. Okay, that's great. So one more. Anyone else? You can type in the chat box. Waking up early, being successful is all about having our choices, and education, right, is a bedrock of change to take place, right? That's great, right? Thank you. So we'll move forward. We'll talk about the four beliefs. So these four beliefs originate in neuro-linguistic programming. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. You can find webinars, maybe 90 minutes, 100 minutes webinars on my website. They are of long and deep content. You can visit my, if you want to know about more about NLP. Right now, you can understand that NLP, my perspective is it's an applied psychology. It's all about having more personal choices in life. It's all about bringing our unconscious patterns into conscious awareness so that we can make a very conscious decision of what to have within us, what to retain, and what to replace. So that's my definition. If you want to learn more about NLP, you are welcome to visit my website, and there are free webinars there. So generally, these four beliefs, coming back to these four beliefs, they originate in NLP, and they are found among successful people. So NLP started as a modeling process, trying to identify what makes successful people successful. So trying to identify that difference that creates a difference. So how come successful? What is common in them? If something is common in them, maybe that is the key. That is the key ingredient which makes them very effective, excellent, and successful. So in the early days of NLP, this was a quest to identify that distinction that creates a distinction. So successful people were chosen, and they were completely modeled. What is that they are doing in terms of thinking, in terms of language patterns, in terms of behavior? What is common among them? Trying to identify what is common among them. And then putting that in a structure, creating a structure of after that, and what evolved out of that was NLP. So difference that creates a difference, the distinction that creates a distinction is about this, and lots of beliefs were identified. Right now, in this context of this webinar, creating breakthrough successes in our own personal lives, I like to focus upon these four beliefs. So we ourselves would have exhibited this belief. If we talk about them, we ourselves would understand that we ourselves have been exhibiting these beliefs at various times, but maybe at an unconscious level. And the more conscious we make it, the more control we have over them. So that's the idea here. So this is the first belief. People already have all the resources they need. People already have all the resources they need. What they need is access to these resources at appropriate times. For example, if one client comes to me and says, sir, I'm not confident. First thing I need to understand is that need not necessarily be true. It doesn't mean that he doesn't even know what is confidence, because he's an employee, he is an executive, he has been successful. I'm sure he should have been confident in most of the situations in his life. But maybe now he's getting stuck in certain contexts, maybe with his boss, maybe with a colleague, in which he's not able to access those resources at appropriate times. So it doesn't mean that he doesn't even know what is confidence, and he need to look for confidence from outside sources, right? So I would like to point a few words, right? The word resources. Generally, I personally classify the resources as internal resources and external resources. The external resources are, right, money, people. That is how I classify. Time and systems. This is my classification when I look for external resources. What about the internal resources? We call them as resourceful mind states. Being determined, being curious, being empathetic. So these are internal resources, being confident. So these are internal resources. So, right, success depends on a very, I would say, our access to this internal and external resources. So one of the beliefs that could be very powerful for us to have is, I have all the resources I need. Maybe I'm in a stuck position, I'm not able to access those resources, but if I learn from myself, that is again pretty important. We can learn from others, but the best person for us to model is our own self. If we're able to travel into our past and look at it, an event in detail in which I was really confident, then I can understand I have a particular strategy for becoming confident. Maybe I'm not in tune with that, but if I'm able to understand that strategy and create a structure out of that strategy, I can start using that whenever and wherever I want. For example, saying no. I'm finding it difficult to say no. It doesn't mean that I don't know how to say no. If I can look back at my own life, if I can model myself, where were the instances in which I was able to say confidently no, I can go back, go into detail and find the structure, because that is much more easy for me to emulate because it's already there. Of course, I can attend a training program. I can model someone who is good at saying no. We call it as an explicit modeling in NLP. If we find a person, a colleague who is comfortable in saying no, then you can probe him, ask him questions, find out what is the structure he has for saying no, and make it more learnable and teachable. Another way is to go back into your own life and look back into situations where we're able to confidently say no. You can identify particular structures, particular patterns, particular strategies which you ran, which help you to say no so comfortably. I believe, right, internal modeling ourselves is much more effective than, right, learning it from someone. Of course, if you can learn from someone, but still, it's someone else's life. Learning from your own life is much more effective. Of course, you can have a healthy combination of both. So trying to identify what is the strategy, what is the structure for me to access a resource becomes pretty important. So any questions?
Sir, when you say external resources, the system refers to the environment, sir.
Yeah. You can bring in the environment as a system. We can bring in what are our limitations, to what extent our environment gives us freedom. But right now, I'm talking about more things that can help us make our tasks easier. Right, that's what I mean by systems. Right, you put in effort one time, and the system keeps on working for you. It gives you more time and freedom. That's what I mean by systems. For example, one system which I employ is by the email marketing system, which helps me reach more people without me needing to put in too much time and effort. That is one system. So systems, right, help us become more effective. It helps us save time and energy. Right? That's what I mean by systems. Of course, but environment is a very big system. As you rightly said, it could be having very deep impacts on us. Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Will introspection be an internal resource?
Ability to contemplate, yes. We call it as disassociation in NLP, looking at ourselves, right, as a third person and observing what we have done and how impactful it is. And it's a very powerful resource, ability to contemplate or introspect. Yes, sir, it's a very powerful resource. And I have come across few people who are not able to do it, who find it a challenge to go into introspection. We call it as a challenge in disassociating. Right? That there are, I have met a few people and I've helped them to disassociate and observe them. Yes. Any other questions?
Sir, here you're talking about structure, no, sir, more in the structure. Yeah. So structure means you are, what is meaning you're directing towards what, sir?
Okay, for example, what is a structure for saying no to a person? Right, and someone, a person comes to you and asks for an unreasonable, right, help, which is very inconvenient for you. Normally, we have a tendency to say no because we want the relationships not to be affected, right? And in the process, we suffer. So that could be a structure here. So each one would have their own structure. So the best idea is to model a few people and then find is what is common from them, and then develop that as a structure and teach it, make it teachable and learnable. That is a basic idea. So for me, right, the structure is, my focus is, if I can shift my focus from, instead of maintaining the relationship, if I can shift to what is the pain that I have to go through. If I say yes, what is the pain I need to go through? So first is the pain that I have to go through. I'm just working it rough. The pain I have to go through, I need to bring my focus on. And because pain is a very big motivator, which can help me say no. But saying no again is right, not in a rude way, but I would say in a soft way, in a diplomatic way, I need to say no. So for that, where do I get the motivation from? I need to focus on the pain that I'm going through because of yes. The second thing is I need to identify the belief which makes me think if I say no, the person will be offended and my relationship will break. So that is a belief which I have. I need to question the validity of this belief. Is it really true? When I hold this belief, what I say is, what I need to say is, the other person is so rude, he wouldn't understand me. He's not sensitive. So this belief is there. I need to test the validity of this belief. So this belief says, in a way, it is communicating to me the other person to whom I have to say no is not sensitive. then I need to question this. Is it really true? If I say no, will we really, the person, right, he or she will really run away from me, will really break the bond? Are they so insensitive? So based on this pain, I get the motivation, and by understanding that they could understand me, I could empower myself to say no, and maybe I can bring in a conviction to myself where I can make up some time in the future. In a more convenient way, I can make up some time in the future and also communicate the same to the other person when I say no diplomatically. So here is a structure. I focus on the pain. I question my belief. At some level, I understand that the person can be really sensitive and try and understand. And then I communicate. Maybe I will make up. I said no, but I'll somehow make up in the future in a more convenient way. So put all these three things together, and you would get a structure for saying no. Did I communicate, ma'am?
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Somehow it's related to motivation and belief and combination. So whole process. So
Yes,
what is happening?
Process of saying no. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move. This is some story which I really like. There was this story of George Dantzig. It's a very interesting story with respect to belief systems. I'd like to share the story with you. He was a mathematician. He was studying in University of California. This TUI event happened in 1940. And here is the story. So George Dantzig was a mathematics student. Right? He was studying in that particular university. He was very passionate towards mathematics and statistics. He would never miss a mathematics class. But unfortunately, one day he was late for a mathematics class, and he allowed him right from the back door into the lecture hall, and it was almost midway. The lecture was progressing in the midway, and particularly was very fond of this particular professor who was teaching the maths. He was so fond of that particular professor, and this particular professor had a habit of giving assignments, right? Very interesting assignments. So that is one reason that made George look forward to this particular professor's class. So he was very late on that particular day, and the lecture was almost right about the end, and he occupied a back bench, and he looked at the board, and there were two questions. And he understood that they were the two assignments have already been given, and then he noted them down. So the class ended, I believe it was a Friday, and George had a plan to visit his native point during the weekend. So he wanted to finish up these assignments before he goes to his native. And so he started immediately working on those assignments. To his surprise, he found that assignments were very difficult, very extraordinarily difficult. But anyhow, so I would say enthused to work with these problems, and he started working very, very deeply and very intently with a strong motor focus. And by throughout night, he worked throughout night, and as the day was dawning, he was able to finish those two assignments. And then he wrote them down, put them in an envelope. At this professor put it in his mailbox, and then went to his native. And one day, all hell broke loose in the university. Everyone were looking for George. Where is George? Where is George? And it is said that a car has been sent to his native to bring him back. And George Dantzig was really surprised. So as he got out of the car, there was a huge amount of claps, and the professor came and hugged him. It was really, he was riding on the high clouds, and but he couldn't understand what is the reason. And he asked, what is the celebration for? And then the professor said, you have solved those two problems. And George asked, those two assignments, you mean those two assignments which you wrote on the board? And the professor said, they are not just assignments. Didn't you listen to my class? And George said, sorry, sir, I didn't really get to know about it. So what are those two things? And the professor said, there are two problems that are remaining unsolved for the past 100 years in the field of the world of statistics. Those are the two problems that are remaining unsolved. In the last century, I did talk about that. Did you listen? And George said, sorry, sir, I was late. So being late seems to have its own benefits. So personally, right, what do we understand by this? Something very significant. I don't think that anyone else in the class would have even attempted to solve those problems because they know that these two problems were unsolved in the last century. But George Dantzig didn't get that input, and so that made him access the own inner resources, stay focused, stay committed, and he was able to solve those problems. So those two problems, they are simplex algorithms, the Mathematical Programming Society created George Dantzig's place. Still, with those problems are very, very application oriented. We use them even in this modern day. So that's the power, right? We have the internal resources within us. Our thinking patterns, our language patterns, and our behavior patterns are not helping them. So if we have a deep dive, we'll be able to understand how we can access those resources. That's my point here. So the second belief is if one person can do something, then it is possible for another to do it. Very simply put, normally, right? Locally, we say if one can do it, another one can do it. So if one person can do something, then it is possible for another to do it. The story of Roger Bannister, you would have heard the 4-minute miles in 1954, 3 minutes. It was believed that a man cannot run a mile within 4 minutes. On that day, Roger Bannister broke that barrier. 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds, he was able to run the 4-minute mile. But that is not important. What happened next was important. The record lasted just for 46 days. The record that couldn't be broken for years before was broken in the next 46 days. 20 others were able to do it in the next year. And now it is something very common among national level, state level athletes. They're able to run a 4-minute mile. So what happened in this 46 days? Did our physiology change? Did a person's physiology change? Did the neurology change? Did the skeleton system change? Did the muscular system change? I don't think so. So what actually changed is this, right? We all have the same hardware, very simply put. We all have the same hardware, our central nervous system. We all have the same hardware. The difference is in our software. Software is about, right? It's about our strategies, very particular strategies. In NLP, we call the strategies as a sequence of internal representation. For example, all of us would be having a buying strategy. All of us would be having a spelling strategy. All of us would be having a deciding strategy. So it will be a sequence of our visual, auditory, kinesthetic, some modalities. You can choose to look at my webinars videos available. I've been talking about these strategies there. So it's a question of the strategy. And believe me, right, NLP looks at success as a process. The world's best chef can make a best cake. But is he making the best cake because he has a particular process? If any of us in this webinar know that particular process, and we are able to apply the same process, follow the same process, we'll also be able to get the best cake. So NLP looks at success as a process, and there is a very particular, right, the software that we runs. So if one person is able to do it, then it is possible for another person to do it also. So this is one thing, right? It's called as a modeling belief, right? So one thing which I work is trying to understand the strategies of successful people. So I need to model someone, then I need to understand the strategies. If I have some 15-20 minutes of an open conversation with the person, I'll be focusing on what are the strategies, what are the beliefs, what are the value systems that the individual uses to get motivated and get committed, and what does he actually do in terms of behavior. Hope I'm communicating. So if one person is able to do that, it is possible for another person to do it. Because we all of us have the same central nervous system, around 1.5 grams of the stuff called as brain and the associated central nervous system. All of us have the same, not much of a difference there. But the significant difference comes from the software, and the idea is that could be learned and applied. The third is one of my favorites, is no failure, only feedback. Okay, so I'll just quickly depict it visually. So let's say the three boxes I have. I write the word goal here. And what could be written here in these two boxes? Anyone? So planning all those things of on mental stuff, right? We have planned everything. We have set a goal. So planning is over. What can I write here and here?
Strategies.
Okay, right. So one thing is the strategies part, the pathway, and the other one would be action. Right? Getting the hands dirty, that's the first part, action, strategy, and the goal. Now, NLP says there is nothing which is called as a failure. But in fact, there is nothing which is called as a success. Success and failures are simply labels which we attribute to something which is called as a feedback. So what is there in reality is universe is a fantastic feedback giving mechanism. Everyone in our life is giving a feedback. Our family members, our work colleagues, our clients, even a bus conductor could be giving a feedback. The question is, are we aware of the feedback? Are we considering the feedback and utilizing those feedbacks? So both success and failure are simply labels. There is really nothing which is called as a failure. There is really nothing which is called as a success. So when the feedback says that the action and strategy are not sufficient for you to reach the goal, that is the feedback. Message of the feedback is that suppose we are not able to reach a goal, when we label it as failure, then the real message is the action and the strategy is not sufficient for us to reach the goal. Then what do? We have to change something. So we have to change either the action or the strategy. But friends, right, most of us change the goal. So we'd be having a tendency to keep the action and strategy the same and be okay with the results that we are getting from it. And then we dilute the quality of the goal. And this is called as a comfort zone. So my definition of comfort zone is the inability or unwillingness. Inability or unwillingness to change the strategy and the action. So once I understand that, the goal is something that is born out of my deep driving desire. On a long-term basis, my long-term goal is based on my deep driving desire. I don't think I can change it. It's my intuitive process. It's my unconscious communicating with me. So the best thing that we can do is we need to keep it in the game. This is something important. We need to keep it in the game. We can't replace it unless otherwise, right? We come across something much more inspiring, much more, I would say, purposeful, then of course we can. But until and unless we do that, right, the goal becomes pretty important. The question is, am I comfortable enough in changing my action, in changing my strategy, by modeling, right? By modeling others See someone else, understand success is a process, see someone else who is already reaching the goal and identify what is he doing differently. What is that he is doing which I'm not doing? That is where the key is. And here, if I put another block, can you tell me what could be put here? This is pretty important because whatever I write here will limit this particular goal. It will not allow me to set a inspiring goal, authentic goal above and beyond it. So anyone, what can I write here?
Belief, sir.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's our. The question is how much I align with this deep driving desire, which is my right, which is my unconscious, and how much am I valuing this, and how much am I able to work on going for a different action, going for a different strategy. And then the last belief is chunking. Anything, this is a very important word, anything can be accomplished if we break it down into small pieces. How do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. So when we set lofty goals, it looks like an elephant. At some level, we get demotivated. So the idea is, if we have this belief, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And sometimes, right, in nature, the beliefs have a compounding effect. That is again another something which is very significant. Another compounding effect. It's very, very right. It's not linear. Something we do on a small levels can help us really create much more powerful breakthroughs. Much more breakthroughs. Okay. So the concept of chunking, right? How do you eat an elephant? You break it down into small pieces and then focus on the first one. For example, there was this client who was given an assignment doing 45 minutes yoga. 45 minutes, how can I do that? So he has to split it down into small bits and focus on the first bit, which is nothing but getting into the yoga dress and spreading out the yoga mat. Just focus on that. Nothing else. For me, when I want to write a blog and I have a tendency to postpone, my focus is just open the laptop and switch it on. And one of my mentors will be talking about 10%. I need not complete it fully. I'll start at 10%. I need not write 1,000 words. I can write 100 words. Just open the laptop, switch it on, and write 100 words. And then believe me, 95% of the time, if a client is able to get into the yoga dress and unfold right the yoga mat, he does it. Hope I am communicating. So let me quickly put right the application, rephrase these beliefs. I'll finish in 5-10 minutes. Rephrase these beliefs personally. Right now, we are talking about in third person's perspective. So one of the ways is to rephrase these beliefs personally and facing something here, something like this. I already have all the resources I need. I know how to be confident. I know how to say no. And I know how to let go. And I know how to stay determined. I already have experienced these resources in the past. And I have a strategy for them. I can do it. Because these are something which I need not loan myself from somewhere else. That is the biggest block. I have to learn them. I have to loan it from someone else. That's not necessary. I already have those resources. I have already experienced them. So all I need to do is go back into my past and see for myself how I have accessed those resources. Second one, if one can do it, it is possible for me also to do it because I have the same hardware. The hardware is the same. All I need to know is the difference. The difference is that in the questions of the strategy, what the other person is doing, which I am not doing. If I know that, I can also get the same results. The third one is there is no failure, only feedback. I have a lofty goal. I have a deep aligned goal, which comes out of my deep driving desire. I need to honor it. I need to be authentic towards it. And for that to happen, I need to keep on changing the actions and strategies which are not really helping me to move towards that. So one of the very important questions that is generally asked in field of NLP is, what is the last time you did something for the first time? Have you been consistently trying something new? Are you getting stuck in a routine, getting stuck in a comfort zone? So once I understand that there is something, there is really nothing which is called as a failure. And if I label things as strongly as failures, then that could be a problem. It could slowly take a person into depression. So once a person understands that it's just the feedback, I need to look at how else can I work for it? What are the other options? Anything can be accomplished if I break it down into small pieces. Naturally, right? Particularly a long-term goal is massive. But it could look like an elephant to me. There is no point in being afraid of it. How do we eat an elephant? Break it down into small pieces. Understand the power of compounding. Where 1 + 1 can be much more than 2. There could be a lot of synergy happening, a lot of compounding happening, which could multiply my efforts as I go down the path. Complication. Choose one context which you are finding it challenging. I'll give you 30 seconds. We'll try an application with that. Choose one context which you are finding it challenging. It could be a business, it could be a personal growth. Now identify one context which you are finding it challenging, which means that you are putting in effort. What do I mean by challenging? Putting in effort, but the returns are diminishing, reducing returns. I'll give you 30 seconds. Just focus on what is happening right now. You need not share it. It's for your own awareness. Choose one context which you're finding it challenging right now. What's happening? Okay, I hope you have identified one context which you're finding it challenging. Now ask yourself, which of these 4 beliefs can really help you? Remember the 4 beliefs, right? I already have the resources I need. If one can do it, it is possible for another to do it. It is possible for me to do it. It's a question of changing the action and strategy. And am I really chunking it down? Which of these beliefs can really help you identify them? I already have the resources I need. If it is possible for someone, it is also possible for me. And what is that I need to change? Is it the action, the strategy? And the 4th one is, right, am I chunking it too big so that I get demotivated? Should I chunk it small and believe in the power of compounding? So ask yourself, which of these 4 beliefs can really help you? And identify one belief. After having chosen one, choose to internalize this belief within yourself. That's the tricky part. So NLP comes up with lots of techniques for that. The first is a VAK technique, the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic modalities, to guide your unconscious into accepting and internalizing this belief. So start with the auditory, rephrase the personal level, put yourself in a meditative mood where your doubting part is silence to some extent at least. And you say the rephrased belief, I have all the resources that I need. It's pretty effective, provided you are able to really go into a nice calm state, the trance state, in which your unconscious becomes more, I would say, susceptible to influences, to advices, where you can choose to advise yourself. Remember, what you say to yourself defines you. Again, let me repeat, what you say to yourself defines you. So the auditory language is very important. Right. So one thing is you need to understand and say it with an emotional quotient, right? Not mechanical repetition. Understand the validity, use your logic, understand the validity behind the belief, and impress yourself. Then the visual portion, you can see yourself as the person who is operating from that belief. Let your unconscious guide you. There is a very interesting technique just called as a new behavior generator technique. Just start an NLP program. You can have a look at it, which helps you work on this belief change work visually and kinesthetically. So once you see yourself operating from that belief, step into yourself and feel how good it is when you operate from that belief. How good it is, how nice it is, how relaxing, how soothing, how easy, how effortless, how enjoyable it is to operate from that belief system. So it's just gently guiding your unconscious into accepting and internalizing this belief. So allow yourself to express these beliefs as behaviors. This again, right? Once you have internalized, there will be a prompting within you, right, to start acting it out. Give yourself permission to act this out. It will come in innumerable ways. It could be very, very intuitive. So allow yourself to express these beliefs as behavior. This is pretty important because that's where you start getting the evidence. So again, right, you need not work on very big changes. Start small and keep experimenting as you collect evidences that you are a better communicator, that you are more confident, that you are more determined, that you are able to say no, that you are able to let go. Collect evidences. The more evidence you collect, the process becomes much more fast. Any questions? So very importantly, the evidence procedure of these beliefs in people. You can also, one another way is to look for evidence of these beliefs in other people whom you admire or have as mentors. So that's a form of a reinforcement. When you are able to identify this person whom I admire is operating from this belief and this is the result he or she is getting, that's a very powerful reinforcement for you.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
See, when you're talking about beliefs,
yeah,
where does habits and behavior, right? Where does habits and behavior come in the context of belief?
Okay. So what I feel is beliefs make us operate in a very particular way. The beliefs that we have limit our choices And we start operating in very specific ways. For example, if I have a belief that strangers are untrustable, then it could seriously limit how I behave with a stranger. And right, there is something which is called as a reticular activating system. Based on that belief, when I look at the outer world, I will always tend to have a tendency to see things which support my belief system. That is again the problem. So if I have a belief that strangers are not trustworthy, and if I meet a stranger, then I will limit myself. Maybe I come up with a very close to body language, and that will have an impact on the other person. It's called as a transference. And that other person will unconsciously behave in a particular way, which reinforces this belief system. And this is the act which I do every time, and then this becomes a habit. You put me in a room filled with strangers, I close up myself, breathe shallowly, don't have eye contact, and always look out how can I escape out of it. And by this body gestures, I am communicating to all the other strangers in this room. This guy is anxious, right? Maybe he's not really willing to be here, so let's ignore him. That's unconscious signal which I'm communicating, and then I look up at, and then I reinforce, yes, these people don't really like me, and so I need to move on. So it seems to be a very vicious cycle. So what I say is the beliefs, it limits our choices. We enter into routine behaviors, and over a period of time, those behaviors become as very strong habits.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So any other questions, friends? Okay, right. So,
sir, then our habits will be something like the strategies that we work out and we chunk it up and we will make it a habit and consistently, then that day all those becomes a habit. Is that you're saying, sir?
yeah, the habit, personally, I would put the habit as more unconscious in nature.
Okay.
Whereas the strategies could be more conscious. And habits could be very short term, which I do on a routine basis. But the strategies are long term and they're more conscious. For example, how do I get 5 more clients? Could be a very conscious strategy. But when I go and meet with the HR, how do I speak with the HR? Could be based on my habit. How do I introduce myself? How do I present myself? That could be a habit, which is more unconscious, whereas a strategy is something much more conscious. That's how I look at it. Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question?
Sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So quickly, for those who are interested in having a deeper learning with me, I hope this session itself was valuable to you at some level. So I'm doing a group coaching program, Success from Within, claiming authentic success, right? By being really connected with what we want. It's a group coaching session. So I'm doing it. It's a deep dive into how we manage our long-term goals, how we manage our aspirations, how we manage our time, and how do we prioritize, and how do we manage our stress, and how proactive are we, right? How much are we able to bring our unconscious patterns into conscious awareness, and how aligned are we to our mission and purpose? Are we really thinking long term? So these are the key elements which we'll be having a very deep dive into using NLP frameworks, management frameworks, wisdom practices. So these are the areas in which we'll be having a very deep dive, and the key takeaways is fresh insights about our own behaviors, right? Your own behaviors, the fresh insights, and developing new strategies, which could be co-created in the group. It will be very, very informal and structured. And most of the time it will be driven by the participants. That's the process of facilitation. And the idea is to have a key action plan, maybe for the next 3 months, next 6 months, and constructive feedbacks, right, from the entire group. Maybe I can give you constructive feedbacks. I can also constructive feedback from the group members. That's also a possibility. So fresh insights about our own behavior, but very specific behaviors when it comes to challenging situations, and what else could be done, the new strategies and the key action plan for the next 3 to 6 months, and the constructive feedbacks. Right, those are the key takeaways. The format is group coaching, and it will be highly unstructured, right, very safe, very open, and it will be a facilitation mode where the group wisdom is tapped into, your own innate wisdom is tapped into. The dates are from coming Wednesday. It's a 5-day program, from 20th to 24th, from Wednesday to Saturday. Timing is 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Each day will involve tasks so that you complete those tasks the next day. Over a period of 5 days, we get sufficient momentum, right, to start really working on our plans. The investment is rupees 5,000. I kept it, I believe, right, more affordable. But for people who can decide today was the early bird offer ends. Already people are signing up, and the seats are very, very limited. I want to limit it to so that we can have a deep interaction. For people who can decide today, the offer is rupees 3,500. So for those of you who are interested, you can contact me through WhatsApp. You can note my number, have a screenshot, 9444128486. So you can just WhatsApp me. I'll give you ways of registering for the workshop, for the group coaching program. So that's it. So thank you very much for being with me. And I do believe this program had been of use to you. So keep exploring NLP, keep exploring life. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. It's so nice to again connect back and learn through you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. So any other feedback that you want to give or you felt about the program, you can share.
Yes, sir. Especially, I haven't thought that the pain could be a motivating factor to say no.
Okay, right.
That was a very new insight for me. Thanks again, sir.
Okay. Right.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm Chandrasekhar. Is it a sort of a soft skills program or is it different, sir?
It will be having a few structures. It will not be a structured training program. It will be more about, I would say, frameworks, right? The frameworks, feedbacks, generating insights. That is the key idea. So it will not be a regular structured training program. It's not like that. It will be more unstructured and will be on a facilitation mode, so that the participants have the opportunity to talk about their challenges and talk about the new strategies that you could be generating. And feedbacks, that is where the real magic happens. So the feedbacks, the constructive feedbacks will be in right, very good amount, which can help you become aware. It will not be a regular training program.
Thank you. It was very useful, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, dear friends. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.